Captain Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the stars through the main view screen. The ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months, searching for new worlds and civilizations. It was a routine exploration mission, or so he thought. "Captain, we're picking up some strange signals," said Lieutenant Commander So-Young Kim from her position at the tactical station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel as she tried to make sense of what the sensors were detecting. Hyunwoo walked over to her station. "What kind of signals?" "Distress calls, sir. Multiple sources. They're coming from a star system about 2 light years ahead of us," So-Young replied, her face showing concern. "The signals are weak, but they seem to be asking for help." Commander Jinny Lee looked up from the science station. "Captain, I'm reading 17 different planets in that system. Most of them show signs of civilization, but something doesn't look right." "What do you mean?" Hyunwoo asked. Jinny pointed to her screen. "The energy readings are massive. There are 3 huge objects in orbit around different planets. Each one is bigger than our largest space stations back on Earth." Hyunwoo thought for a moment. The Indomitable was alone out here, far from any other human ships, but people were calling for help, and that was something he couldn't ignore. "Set course for the system. Maximum safe speed," he ordered. Dr. Woo-Jin Choi, the ship's doctor and alien life expert, joined them on the bridge. "Captain, if there are that many civilizations in one system, this could be very important. We might be looking at the largest group of intelligent species ever found." As the Indomitable moved closer to the system, the crew could see more details. The 3 massive objects were shaped like temples or churches, but they were floating in space. They were covered in gold and silver metals that shined in the light of the system's star. "Those aren't normal spacecraft," So-Young said, staring at the images on her screen. "They look like they were built for show, not for fighting or traveling." Young Soo-Han, the ship's engineer, whistled softly. "Look at the size of those things. They must be 20 kilometers long each. What kind of civilization builds ships like that?" The Indomitable entered the outer edge of the system, and immediately the communications board lit up with signals. Most were in languages the computer couldn't understand, but some were clear enough. "Help us. The gods demand sacrifice. They take our children. Please, anyone who can hear this. The divine ones grow angry. We cannot fight the gods. They have power over life and death." Hyunwoo felt his stomach turn. Gods? Sacrifice? This didn't sound like any advanced civilization he had ever heard of. "Jinny, can you tell what species are sending these signals?" he asked. "I'm detecting at least 12 different types of aliens, Captain. They all seem to be similar to humans in some ways." "But sir," Jinny paused, looking worried. "The signals are coming from the planets, not from the big temple ships. So whoever built those ships is different from the people calling for help?" "It looks that way, sir." The Indomitable moved deeper into the system, staying hidden behind a large asteroid. On the main screen, they could see one of the temple ships hovering over a green and blue planet. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Suddenly, the space around the temple ship began to glow. A huge figure appeared in the air above the planet. It looked like a giant alien with 6 arms and eyes that burned like fire. The figure was hundreds of kilometers tall, floating in space like a ghost. "What in the hell is that?" Young Soo said, his eyes wide. The giant figure spoke, and its voice was heard on every communication channel. It spoke in a language that sounded ancient and powerful, but the ship's computer was able to translate it. "People of Kalari Prime, your gods grow tired of your weak offerings. You must give us 1,000 of your young ones, or we will bring fire from the heavens." Down on the planet, the crew of the Indomitable could see cities full of alien people. They looked almost human, but with blue-green skin and larger eyes. Many of them were on their knees praying to the giant figure in the sky. "Captain," Dr. Choi said quietly, "those people down there are terrified. This isn't religion. This is slavery." Hyunwoo watched as small ships began to rise from the planet's surface. They were carrying the people that the giant figure had demanded. He could see on the sensors that most of the people in those ships were very young. "So young, can you tell if that giant figure is real?" he asked. So-Young worked at her controls for several minutes. "Sir, I'm getting some very strange readings. The figure is giving off energy, but it's not consistent with a living being. And there are electromagnetic patterns that look like..." "Like what?" "Like a hologram, sir. A very advanced one, but still just a projection." Dr. Choi was studying the temple ship itself. "Captain, I'm seeing some interesting things about that ship. It's not built like a warship at all. Most of the structure seems to be designed for creating light shows and sound effects. You think it's all fake? Hyunwoo asked. I think someone is putting on a very good show to scare those people. The giant figure in space began to fade away as the small ships from the planet reached the temple ship. The crew of the Indomitable watched in horror as the ships disappeared into openings in the temple ship's hull. We have to do something, Young-soo said. Those people are being taken from their families. But we don't know what we're dealing with yet, So Young warned. If those temple ships have weapons, they could destroy us easily. Hyunwoo was about to respond when new alarms started sounding. Captain, we have ships approaching, So Young reported. Small craft coming from the direction of the planet. On the screen, they could see a group of damaged ships heading toward them. The ships were clearly trying to escape from something, and they were badly hurt. They're hailing us, sir, the communications officer reported. Put them through. A face appeared on the screen. It was one of the blue-green-skinned aliens from the planet below. He looked old and tired, and there were tears in his large eyes. Unknown ship, please help us. I am Taemin, elder of the Kalari people. We have escaped from our world, but we cannot run much longer. The Divine Ones will send their servants to bring us back. Hyunwoo made his decision quickly. Elder Taemin, this is Captain Park of the human ship Indomitable. We will help you. Bring your ships into our cargo bay. Humans? Taemin looked surprised. We have never heard of your people. Are you servants of the Divine Ones? No, Hyunwoo said firmly. We serve no gods but ourselves. As the Kalari ships were brought into the Indomitable's cargo bay, Hyunwoo gathered his senior officers. I want to know everything about these Divine Ones and their temple ships. Something about this whole situation doesn't feel right. Dr. Choi was already preparing to meet with the refugees.
Captain, if these people have been living under this kind of control,
they might be afraid to tell us the truth about their gods. Then we'll have to show them that some gods can bleed, Hyunwoo said quietly. Elder Taemin and several other Kalari were brought to the ship's meeting room. They looked around with wonder at the human technology, but also with fear. Elder Taemin, Hyunwoo said gently, can you tell us about these Divine Ones? How long have they ruled your people? Taemin was quiet for a long moment. Captain Park, the Divine Ones have watched over our worlds for 3,000 of your years. They are all powerful. They can appear anywhere, command the elements, and read our thoughts. To speak against them means death. But you escaped from them. Some of us have begun to doubt, Taemin said in a whisper. We have seen things that make us wonder if the Divine Ones are truly what they claim to be. Dr. Choi leaned forward. What kind of things? Small things. Sometimes their magic fails for just a moment. Sometimes we see metal and wires where there should be divine light. And Taemin stopped, looking scared. It's okay, Hyunwoo said. You're safe here. We found one of their servants that had been damaged. Inside, it was not flesh and blood. It was circuits and metal. Just like a machine. Jin-ae and So-young looked at each other. Their suspicions were being confirmed. Elder Taemin, Hyunwoo said, we think your gods might not be gods at all. Elder Taemin stared at Captain Hyunwoo with shock. Not gods? But Captain Park, you have not seen their power. They command lightning from the heavens. They can appear as giants in the sky. They know our thoughts before we think them. Commander Jin-ae Lee had been studying the damaged pieces that the Kalari refugees had brought with them. She looked up from her workstation in the science lab. Captain, could you come down here? I think you need to see this. Hyunwoo, Dr. Choi, and Elder Taemin went down to the science lab. On the examination table were several pieces of metal and strange devices that the Kalari had taken from their world. What am I looking at, Jin-ae? Hyunwoo asked. Jin-ae pointed to a small device that looked like it was made of crystal and metal. This is what Elder Taemin's people thought was a piece of divine bone from one of their gods. But when I scanned it, I found something very different. She activated a holographic display that showed the inside of the device. It's actually a very advanced computer chip, the kind that could process massive amounts of information and create realistic holograms. Elder Taemin moved closer to look. But it glowed with holy light when the servants of the gods carried it. That's because it was designed to glow, Dr. Choi explained. Look at these microcircuits here. They're connected to light-emitting elements that would create exactly that kind of glow. Jin-ae picked up another piece, this one looking like a small metal wand. And this piece, which you said shot divine lightning. She connected it to the ship's power system using a careful interface. Immediately, small bolts of electricity began dancing around the tip of the wand. "It's just a plasma discharge device," she said. "Very advanced but completely artificial. No divine power needed." Elder Taemin sat down heavily in a chair. 3,000 years, he whispered. 3,000 years of slavery to machines? Young Suhan joined them in the lab. "Captain, I've been analyzing the temple ships from a distance. I think you're going to find this interesting." He activated another holographic display showing the detailed scan of one of the temple ships. "These ships are huge, but they're not built for war. Most of their internal space is taken up by holographic projectors, sound amplification systems, and what looks like massive computer arrays." "What about weapons?" So Young asked as she entered the lab. "That's the strange part," Young-Soo replied. "They do have weapons, but they're designed for show, not for real fighting. The energy output is meant to look impressive, but against a real military ship, they wouldn't be very effective." Dr. Choi was examining more of the alien technology. "Captain, I think I understand how they've been controlling these people for so long. It's not just the technology, it's psychology." He showed them readings from another device. "This creates low-frequency sound waves that affect the brain. They can make people feel fear, awe, or religious feelings without them knowing why. Combined with the holographic displays and plasma effects, it would be very convincing." Elder Taemin was listening to all of this with growing anger. "So they have been poisoning our minds as well as our spirits?" "It looks that way," Hyunwoo said. "But the question is, who are they really? And why are they doing this?" Jean A brought up another scan on her display. "I managed to get some readings on the life forms inside the temple ships. Captain, they're not gods. They're not even particularly impressive as aliens go. The scan showed the outline of the creatures inside the ships. They looked like large reptiles walking on two legs, but they didn't seem any bigger or stronger than humans. According to these readings, they're actually quite fragile," Dr. Choi added. "Their bones are hollow like birds. They probably couldn't survive in hand-to-hand combat with a human." "Then why all the show?" So Young asked. "Because it works," Elder Taemin said sadly. "When you believe something is a god, you don't think to fight it. You just obey." Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. So Young ran to the nearest communication panel. "Captain, we have a problem. 3 ships just appeared on our sensors. They're coming from the temple ships." What kind of ships?" "Small, but they're scanning us with some kind of energy beam." "And Captain," "I think they found us." The group rushed back to the bridge. On the main screen, they could see 3 sleek ships approaching. They were beautiful, covered in the same gold and silver as the temple ships, but they moved with purpose and speed. "Incoming message," the communications officer reported. "Put it on screen." The image that appeared made several of the Kalari refugees gasp in fear. It showed one of the reptilian aliens, but it was wearing elaborate golden armor and a helmet that made it look much larger and more impressive than it really was. "Unknown vessel," the alien said in a voice that was artificially deepened and echoed. "You have taken property of the Divine Ones. Return our servants immediately, or face divine punishment." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "This is Captain Park of the human vessel Indomitable. The people aboard our ship came here voluntarily. We won't be returning anyone to slavery." The alien's eyes narrowed. "Humans, we have no record of your species. You will submit to the will of High Deity Morthek or you will be destroyed." "We don't submit to anyone," Hyunwoo replied calmly. The alien seemed surprised by this response. "All species submit to the Divine Ones. It is the natural order, not where we come from." The communication ended abruptly. So Young was studying her tactical displays. "Captain, those ships are powering up weapons. But they're not targeting our critical systems. It looks like they want to disable us, not destroy us. They want to capture us," Dr. Choi realized. "Probably to make an example of us for the other species they control." Elder Taemin was watching the screen with fascination instead of fear. "Captain Park, in all of our history, no one has ever spoken to the Divine Ones like that. They always demand immediate surrender and they always get it." "Well, they're about to learn something about humans," Hyunwoo said. "So Young, what are our options?" "Those ships are fast, but they're not built for real combat any more than the temple ships are. Our shields should be able to handle their weapons easily. And our own weapons," she smiled. "Let's just say they're going to be very surprised. Young-Soo, how are our engines?" "Ready for anything, Captain. These temple ships and their escorts are impressive looking. but they're not built for chasing a real warship. The three golden ships began their attack, firing beams of bright energy at the Indomitable. The beams looked spectacular, crackling with electricity and leaving trails of light, but when they hit the ship's shields, they barely registered on the power readings. Was that supposed to hurt? Young-Soo asked with a grin. So Young, return fire. But just a warning shot. Let's see what they're really made of. The Indomitable's plasma cannons fired a single, controlled burst at the lead ship. The shot wasn't meant to destroy, just to show what human weapons could do. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The golden ship's shields collapsed instantly, and the shot burned a hole straight through one of its wings. The ship began spinning out of control, clearly damaged but not destroyed. The other two ships stopped their attack immediately. Incoming message again, the communications officer reported. This time, the alien on the screen looked very different. The helmet was gone, showing his real reptilian face, and his voice was normal, without the artificial effects. Human ship, please stop firing. We need to discuss this situation. Now you want to talk? Hyun-Woo said. We were not expecting resistance. Your weapons are more advanced than we anticipated. Dr. Choi stepped forward. Tell us the truth. You're not gods, are you? The alien was quiet for a long moment. How did you know? Because real gods don't build fake temples and use holographic projectors to scare primitive civilizations. The alien's shoulders slumped. My name is Krevtar. I was a commander in the Vorthak fleet. We are not gods. We never were, Elder Taemin gasped. Vorthak? But that is just a legend. An old story about star travelers from long ago. The legends are true, Krevtar said. We came to this sector 3,000 years ago. We were explorers like you. But we found that the local civilizations were primitive, and we had such advanced technology compared to them. So you decided to play God, Jinne said with disgust. At first it was just to avoid conflicts. If they thought we were divine, they wouldn't fight us. But then some of our leaders realized the advantages. We could have anything we wanted. Worship, resources, servants, slaves, Hyun-Woo corrected. Yes, slaves. And over time it became our whole civilization. We built the temple ships, created the holographic displays, developed the mind control technology. We convinced ourselves that we deserved to rule because we were superior. But you're not superior, So Young pointed out. You're just older technology, Krevtar nodded sadly. Yes, and now true gods have arrived to show us our place. We're not gods either, Hyun-Woo said firmly. We're just people who don't like bullies. This seemed to confuse Krevtar more than anything else they had said. Young-Soo was monitoring the temple ships. Captain, the big ships are moving. All three of them are heading in our direction. Elder Taemin looked frightened again. The god ships themselves? Captain Park, you cannot fight all three. Even if they are not truly divine, they have weapons that can destroy planets. The three massive temple ships moved through space like floating mountains of gold and silver. Each one was 20 kilometers long, and covered with elaborate decorations that caught the light of the system's star. Captain Hyun-Woo watched them approach on the main screen of the Indomitable. Captain, So Young reported from her tactical station, I'm reading massive energy buildups from all three ships. Whatever they're planning to do, it's going to be big. Elder Taemin was standing next to Dr. Choi, and both of them looked terrified. Captain Park, Taemin whispered, you must run now. When the god ships prepare for divine punishment, no one survives. They will break your mind before they destroy your body. What do you mean, break our minds? Jinne asked from her science station. The divine punishment is more than just weapons, Taemin explained. It attacks your thoughts, fills you with terror and despair. It makes you want to surrender, to beg for forgiveness. No species has ever resisted it. Young-Soo Han looked up from his engineering controls. Captain, I'm detecting some kind of broadcast system activating on those ships. It's not normal communications. It's putting out waves that could affect brain functions. Dr. Choi was already scanning the crew with his medical equipment. I'm reading the beginning of the broadcast now. It's designed to create feelings of fear and religious awe in most humanoid species. Suddenly, the space around the Indomitable began to change. The stars seemed to grow dim, and a golden light started filling the area around the three temple ships. The light was beautiful but somehow wrong, like looking at the sun through colored glass. Then the voices began. They came from everywhere at once, speaking directly into the minds of everyone on the ship. The voices were deep and powerful, speaking in perfect English somehow. Humans of the vessel Indomitable, you have defied the will of the Divine Ones. You have shown disrespect to gods. For this you will suffer eternal punishment. Most of the Kalari refugees immediately fell to their knees, crying and begging for forgiveness, but the human crew had very different reactions. Is that supposed to be scary? Chief Petty Officer Donghyun Nam said with a laugh. I've heard worse from my drill sergeant back on Earth. So Young was working at her controls trying to block the mental broadcasts. Captain, this is definitely artificial. It's just a very advanced form of psychological warfare. The light show is pretty impressive, though, Young Soo admitted. Must be using massive holographic projectors. Dr. Choi was amazed by what his medical scanners were showing. Captain, the broadcast is having almost no effect on the human crew. Our brain chemistry is different enough from the local species that their mind control doesn't work very well on us. The voices in their heads grew louder and more demanding. Kneel before your gods. Accept your punishment for defying the divine will. Lieutenant Young Soo Han started laughing. You know what this reminds me of? Remember that politician back on Earth who used to shout at everyone during his speeches? Same energy, different special effects. Yeah, Donghyun agreed. Except that guy actually got elected. These fake gods couldn't even run a decent campaign. The irreverent attitude of the human crew seemed to confuse the Vorthak. The voices became uncertain. Why do you not fear? Why do you not surrender? Captain Hyunwoo activated the ship's communication system to broadcast back to the temple ships. Because we've dealt with plenty of bullies before and you're not even very good ones. The golden light around the ships began to flicker and change. New images appeared in space around them. Massive figures that looked like the Vorthak but hundreds of times larger, floating in the vacuum and pointing down at the tiny human ship. Behold the true forms of your gods, the voices screamed. Despair at your insignificance. So Young was analyzing the projections with her sensors. Captain, these holograms are incredibly detailed. The amount of processing power needed to create images this large and realistic must be enormous. But they're still just pictures, Janae pointed out. Very expensive pictures. The giant holographic gods began to move, reaching down toward the Indomitable with claws that seemed to be made of pure energy. As they touched the ship's shields, sparks flew and alarms began to sound. Now that actually hurt a little, Young Soo reported, but it's still not enough to get through our shields. Dr. Choi was studying the psychological effects of the display. Captain, I think I understand what they're doing. This whole show is designed to make enemies feel small and helpless. But humans have a natural resistance to that kind of manipulation. Why? Elder Taman asked. He was still on his knees, but he was fighting against the urge to surrender. Because we evolved on a planet full of things trying to kill us, Donghyun explained. Big scary predators, natural disasters, poisonous plants. We learned a long time ago that just because something looks dangerous doesn't mean you should give up. Plus, So Young added, most of our entertainment back on Earth involves fighting monsters that are bigger and stronger than we are. This is basically just a really expensive movie. The Vorthak seemed to be getting desperate. The holographic displays became even more elaborate, showing scenes of planets being destroyed and civilizations being wiped out. This is the fate of all who defy the gods. The voices roared. You know, Young Soo said thoughtfully. If they had that kind of power, why didn't they just blow us up right away? Why all the talking and light shows? Janae was thinking the same thing. Captain, I don't think they can actually destroy planets. I think all of this is just for intimidation. Tactical specialist Mi Kyung-oh, who had been quietly studying the temple ships, finally spoke up. Captain, I've been analyzing their weapon systems while they've been putting on this show. These ships are built for display, not for real combat. What do you mean? Hyunwoo asked. Their weapons are designed to look impressive and cause fear, but they're not actually very powerful. A real military ship would have weapon systems taking up much more space. These ships have most of their space dedicated to holographic equipment and sound systems. The giant holographic gods were still reaching for the Indomitable, but the human crew was no longer impressed. In fact, some of them were starting to get annoyed. This is getting boring, Donghyun said. Are they going to do anything else or just keep waving their fake hands around? I've got an idea, Young Soo said with a grin. Captain, what if we showed them what real special effects look like? Hyunwoo smiled. Do it. Young Soo activated the Indomitable's own holographic systems. They were much smaller than the Vorthak projectors, but they were also much more advanced. Instead of trying to create giant gods, Young-Soo projected a simple message in letters of fire across space. Nice try. Now watch this. The human ship's weapon systems activated, not to fire at the temple ships, but to create a light show of their own. Plasma charges lit up the darkness, creating patterns and shapes that were beautiful instead of frightening. The effect on the Vorthak was immediate. Their own holographic displays began to flicker and fade as their operators became distracted by the human display. Incoming message from the lead temple ship. The communications officer reported. Put it on screen. This time, instead of a single Vorthak commander, they could see what looked like the bridge of the temple ship. Dozens of reptilian aliens were working frantically at control stations, and they all looked confused and frightened. One of them, wearing more elaborate armor than the others, stepped forward. "Human vessel, we demand that you stop this mockery of divine power." "Mockery?" Hyunwoo said innocently. "We're just putting on a show. Isn't that what gods do?" "We are not putting on a show. We are demonstrating our divine authority." "Same thing," So Young said with a shrug. The Vorthak commander was clearly getting angry. "You dare compare our sacred rituals to mere entertainment?" "Well," Jinhei said, "when you get right down to it, isn't that what religion is? Stories and songs and fancy costumes to make people feel a certain way?" "Silence!" the commander roared. "I am High Deity Morthek, ruler of 17 worlds. You will show proper respect." "Okay, Morthek," Hyunwoo said, deliberately leaving out the title. "Here's the deal. You've been lying to these people for 3,000 years. You've stolen their children, taken their resources, and kept them afraid and ignorant. That ends now. You cannot stop the divine will. Watch us." Dr. Choi stepped forward. "Morthek, we know what you really are. We've analyzed your technology, studied your biology, and figured out your whole scam. You're just advanced aliens who learned to fake being gods." "Even if that were true," Morthek said, but his voice was less certain now, "it changes nothing. We have power. We have weapons. We have 3 god ships against your single vessel." "You have 3 very expensive parade floats," Mi-kyung corrected. "Against a real warship." Young-Soo had been working on something while they talked. "Captain, I've figured out how to disrupt their holographic systems. Want me to give it a try?" "Do it." The Indomitable sent out a focused electromagnetic pulse toward the nearest temple ship. Immediately, all of its holographic displays began to malfunction. Instead of giant gods, the space around the ship filled with flickering images that made no sense. Parts of gods mixed with images of control rooms and frightened Vorthak operators. "What have you done?" Morthek demanded. Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as chaos erupted across the Vorthak Empire. On every planet in the system, the holographic gods were malfunctioning. Instead of mighty divine beings, the projections showed flickering images of control rooms, frightened Vorthak operators, and broken machinery. "Captain," Jinhei reported from her science station, "I'm picking up massive communication activity from all 17 planets. The local populations are broadcasting to each other." "What are they saying?" Hyunwoo asked. Jinhei listened for a moment using the ship's translation systems. "They're asking questions. Did you see the gods break? Are those machines inside the holy light? Who are the lizard people in the control rooms?" Elder Taemin was watching the displays with tears in his large eyes. 3,000 years, he whispered. 3,000 years of lies, and it takes one human ship to show us the truth. On the main screen, they could see High Deity Morthek's temple ship trying desperately to repair its holographic systems. But every time they got the projections working again, Young-Soo sent another electromagnetic pulse to disrupt them. "Stop this immediately." Morthek's voice came over the communication system. "You are destroying the natural order of this sector." "The natural order?" Dr. Choi said with anger in his voice. "You mean your system of slavery and fear?" "These species need our guidance," Morthek insisted. "Without us, they will fall into chaos and war." "Maybe," Hyunwoo replied, "but that's their choice to make, not yours." So Young was monitoring communication channels from across the system. "Captain, something big is happening on the 4th planet. The local government is broadcasting a message to their population. Put it on screen." The image showed a group of aliens that looked similar to the Kalari, but with red skin and smaller eyes. One of them, clearly a leader of some kind, was speaking to a crowd. "People of Darkest," the leader said, "we have seen the truth today. The gods are machines. The divine ones are just aliens with advanced technology. For too long we have given them our resources and our children. No more. The crowd behind the leader began to cheer and shout agreement. This is happening everywhere, Jine reported. I'm detecting similar broadcasts from 12 different planets. Young-Soo was grinning as he worked at his engineering station. Captain, the temple ships are trying to jam the planetary communications, but they can't block everything. The truth is spreading faster than they can contain it. High Deity Morthek appeared on the communication screen again, and this time he looked truly desperate.
Human Captain, you don't understand what you're doing.
These civilizations have been peaceful under our rule for 3 millennia. If they rebel, millions will die in the fighting. That's possible, Hyunwoo admitted. But slavery isn't peace. It's just controlled suffering. We gave them order. We gave them purpose. You gave them chains, Elder Taemin said, stepping forward to face the screen. Morthek, I remember the old stories from before your coming. We had art, science, exploration. We had dreams of reaching the stars ourselves. You took all of that away. Morthek's reptilian face showed confusion. But we gave you security. We protected you from war and want. By making us afraid to think or question anything, Taemin replied. That's not protection. That's a prison. Mi Kyung-oh had been studying tactical displays while the conversation continued. Captain, we have new contacts approaching. Multiple ships from several planets all heading toward the temple ships. Are they Vorthak ships? So Young asked. No, sir. They appear to be local craft. Converted cargo ships, mining vessels, even some pleasure craft. They're not military ships, but there are a lot of them. On the screen they could see dozens of small ships approaching from different directions. The ships were clearly not designed for fighting, but they were flying in formation like they had a plan. Incoming message from the lead ship, the communications officer reported. A new face appeared on screen. This alien was different from any they had seen before, with silver skin and 4 arms. Human vessel, this is Commander Zeltar of the Free Worlds Coalition. We thank you for showing us the truth about our oppressors. Free Worlds Coalition? Hyunwoo asked. We formed it about an hour ago, Zeltar said with what might have been a smile. Representatives from 14 planets united for the first time in 3,000 years. We're here to demand that the Vorthak leave our space. Elder Taemin was staring at the screen in amazement. Commander Zeltar, this is Elder Taemin of the Kalari. You're really working together? Different species, different worlds? The humans showed us that the gods can be challenged, Zeltar replied. If one small ship can expose their lies, imagine what we can do if we work together. High Deity Morthek's image reappeared on another communication channel. This is madness. You cannot maintain order without divine guidance. Your species will destroy each other within a generation. Maybe, Commander Zeltar said calmly. But we'll do it as free beings, not as slaves. The temple ships were now completely surrounded by small vessels from the liberated planets. The Vorthak ships still had superior weapons, but they were vastly outnumbered. Captain, Young-Soo reported, the temple ships are powering up their main weapons. It looks like they're planning to fire on the civilian vessels. They wouldn't dare, Dr. Choi said. That would prove everything we've said about them. Desperate people do desperate things, Hyunwoo replied. So Young, prepare to intercept any weapons fire directed at the civilian ships. Already on it, Captain. But before the temple ships could fire, something unexpected happened. New alarms began sounding on Morthek's ship, and they could hear voices shouting in the background of his communication. What's happening over there? Jine asked. Morthek looked off-screen, clearly listening to reports from his crew. Impossible, he muttered. High Deity, one of his officers could be heard saying, We're receiving reports from the other god ships. Their crews are questioning orders. Questioning orders? Sir, many of our own people are asking why we've been lying to these civilizations. Some are saying we should just leave and find uninhabited planets to settle. Morthek's face showed shock and anger. They are questioning me? I am their god. Actually, the officer's voice continued, they're saying you're not really a god either. Dr. Choi was fascinated by this development. Captain, I think we're seeing the collapse of their entire social structure. If the Vorthak leaders convinced their own people that they were gods, then exposing the lie affects everyone in their society. Young-Soo was monitoring internal communications from the temple ships. Captain, there are arguments breaking out all over their fleet. Some Vorthak want to keep fighting, others want to negotiate, and some are talking about surrendering. This is what happens when a lie becomes too big, Elder Taemin observed. Eventually it collapses under its own weight. Commander Zeltar's voice came over the communication system again. Human Captain, we're receiving surrender requests from individual Vorthak ships. Some of their crews want to abandon the temple ships. Hyunwoo thought for a moment. Tell them they can surrender to the Free Worlds Coalition, not to us. This is your sector now, not ours. Understood. And Captain Park? Thank you. The largest temple ship, Morthek's vessel, was still holding position and refusing to surrender, but the other two god ships were beginning to break apart as smaller vessels evacuated their crews. Captain, So Young reported, Morthek's ship is moving. It's heading away from the planets toward open space. Let him go, Hyunwoo said. He's not a god, but he's also not our prisoner to take. Sir, Mi-kyung said, his ship is sending out a wide-range broadcast. Put it on audio. Morthek's voice filled the bridge, but it sounded different now. Smaller, more tired. To all species in this sector, the age of the Divine Ones is ended. We were never gods. We were just explorers who became corrupted by power. There was a long pause before he continued. I don't ask for forgiveness. What we did was wrong. We stole 3,000 years of progress from your civilizations. But perhaps you can build something better than what we gave you. And perhaps, Elder Taemin said quietly, they will remember that gods who can bleed are no gods at all. The massive temple ship continued moving away from the system, growing smaller on the view screen until it was just another point of light among the stars. Young-soo checked his instruments. Captain, we're receiving hundreds of messages from planets throughout the system. They're all asking the same question. What question? They want to know who we humans are, where we came from, and if we're going to stay to rule them instead. Hyunwoo smiled. Send a message to all planets. Tell them we're explorers, just like the Vorthak were originally, but unlike the Vorthak, we have no interest in ruling anyone. We're just passing through. Should we tell them anything else? Jin'e asked. Tell them that the best gods are the ones they make for themselves, through their own choices and their own actions. Dr. Choi looked around the bridge at his crewmates. You know, Captain, I think we just accidentally started the biggest revolution in galactic history. 3 days had passed since the temple ships had fled the system. Captain Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as dozens of ships from different planets worked together to clean up the orbital stations that the Vorthak had left behind. Captain, Commander Jin'e Lee reported from her science station, we're receiving the final surrender from the last Vorthak outpost. That's all of them. Every Vorthak installation in the sector has either surrendered or been abandoned. What about casualties? Dr. Choi asked. Surprisingly few, So Young replied from Tactical. Most of the Vorthak just gave up once their leaders fled. Turns out it's hard to fight when you realize your whole life has been built on lies. Elder Taemin, who had remained on the Indomitable as a liaison with the Free Worlds Coalition, approached the captain. Captain Park, Commander Zeltar would like to speak with you. The Coalition has made some decisions about the future. Put him on screen. Commander Zeltar appeared on the main view screen, but he wasn't alone. Behind him stood representatives from what looked like a dozen different alien species, all of them watching the human crew with expressions of gratitude and curiosity. Captain Park, Zeltar began, the Free Worlds Coalition has been meeting for the past 3 days. We've made several important decisions and we wanted to share them with you first. I'm listening. First, we've agreed to form a permanent alliance between our worlds, not under any single ruler or god, but as equals working together for mutual benefit. That sounds like a good start, Hyunwoo said. Second, we're establishing a new calendar. Day 1 of the new era will be marked as the day the human ship Indomitable showed us that gods can bleed. Dr. Choi smiled at that. I think they mean it metaphorically, Captain. Third, Zeltar continued, we want to offer you and your people permanent membership in our coalition. You would be welcome to establish colonies in our space, share in our trade, and help us explore the galaxy as equals. Hyunwoo was touched by the offer, but he shook his head. Commander Zeltar, we appreciate the offer, but humanity isn't ready for that kind of commitment yet. We're still exploring, still learning who we are among the stars. We understand, Zeltar replied, but the offer will remain open. Whenever humanity is ready, you will have friends here. There is one thing you could do for us, another alien stepped forward. This one had blue skin and looked similar to the Kalari. We want to learn about your technology, your science, your ways of thinking. The Vorthak kept us ignorant for 3,000 years. We have a lot of catching up to do. Young Su-Han looked excited. Captain, we could set up an information exchange. Share our basic scientific knowledge, maybe some of our cultural databases. What do you think, Jin-A? Hyun-woo asked. It would be like giving them 3,000 years of progress all at once, she replied. But they deserve the chance to choose their own path. All right, Hyun-woo decided. We'll share what we can. Basic science, mathematics, engineering principles. And maybe some of our history so you can see how we learn to question authority and think for ourselves. Elder Taemin spoke up. Captain, there's something else. We found records in the abandoned Vorthak stations. Information about other sectors, other civilizations that the Vorthak have contacted. More gods? So Young asked. Possibly. The records mention something called the Divine Network, a group of species that have been playing God in different parts of the galaxy. Dr. Choi frowned. So this isn't an isolated case? It appears not, Taemin replied. The Vorthak were part of something larger, and if these records are accurate, there are other false gods out there ruling over other civilizations. Hyun-woo felt a familiar stirring in his chest, the same feeling he had gotten when they first heard the distress calls from this system. Young-soo, how are our supplies and fuel? Fully stocked, Captain. The Coalition insisted on resupplying us as payment for what we did. And our mission parameters? Exploration and first contact, sir. We have a lot of discretion in how we interpret that. Hyun-woo looked around at his crew. What do you think? Are you interested in meeting some more gods? The responses were immediate and enthusiastic. I'd love to see how their technology compares to the Vorthak, Jin-A said. It would be interesting to study different approaches to the same scam, Dr. Choi added. I want to see if any of them have real weapons this time, So Young said with a grin. Count me in, Young-soo agreed. Someone needs to teach these fake gods some humility. Mi Kyung-oh, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. Captain, I've been thinking about something. The Vorthak ruled for 3,000 years before we showed up. How many other civilizations are out there right now, worshipping false gods and giving up their children? Too many, Hyun-woo said grimly. Commander Zeltar leaned forward on the screen. Captain Park, if you're planning to confront these other false gods, you won't be going alone. The Coalition is already preparing a fleet to help spread the truth. And we have something the Vorthak never expected, Elder Taemin added. We have proof that gods can be defeated. Every world that hears our story will know that they have a choice. Dong-hyun Nam had been listening from his position near the engineering station. Captain, back on Earth we have a saying. Give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach him to fish and he eats for life. Maybe it's time we taught the galaxy how to fish. What do you mean? Hyun-woo asked. We can't visit every world personally, but we can teach people how to recognize false gods, how to question authority, how to think for themselves. We can show them what we showed the Vorthak. That impressive special effects don't make you divine. Dr. Choi nodded enthusiastically. We could create a handbook. How to spot a fake god in 10 easy steps, included in the cultural databases we're sharing. I like it, Jin-A said. Teach people to think scientifically, to ask for evidence, to demand proof of divine claims. Young-soo was already working at his console. Captain, I'm picking up a signal from outside the system. It's very faint, but it looks like another distress call. From where? About 15 light-years from here. The message is repeating every few hours. It says, Young-soo paused to listen more carefully. It says, the star gods demand tribute. Our world grows dark. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us. Hyun-woo felt that familiar stirring again, stronger this time. Set course for the signal. Maximum safe speed. Aye, sir. Commander Zeltar was smiling on the view screen. Captain, we'll be organizing our own fleet to follow you. It may take us a few weeks to prepare, but we'll be coming. Just remember, Hyun-woo said, you're not following us to find new gods to worship. You're coming as equals, as friends. Understood. And, Captain, when this is all over, when the last false god has been exposed and the last enslaved civilization has been freed, humanity will be remembered as the species that taught the galaxy the most important lesson of all. What lesson is that? That the only gods worth having are the ones that encourage you to become gods yourselves. As the Indomitable turned toward the new signal and began its journey to another system, another group of enslaved people calling for help. Hyunwoo thought about what they had accomplished. 3,000 years of oppression ended in a matter of days, not through superior weapons or greater technology, but through the simple act of refusing to bow down. "Captain," Elder Taemin said quietly, "I have been wondering about something. When you first saw our distress calls, why did you decide to help? You could have avoided this system entirely." Hyunwoo thought about the question for a moment. Because that's what humans do. We help when we can, we question what doesn't make sense, and we don't back down from bullies. Even really big bullies with fancy special effects. And if the next false gods have real weapons, real power, then we'll deal with that when we come to it, So Young said confidently. But we'll still deal with it. That's also what humans do. Dr. Choi was already preparing for their next encounter. "I want to study the psychology of species that claim to be gods. There might be patterns we can exploit. And I want to analyze their technology in advance," Jinhei added. "If there really is a divine network, they might share technological approaches." Young-soo was grinning as he worked on the engines. "You know what I'm looking forward to? The look on their faces when we show up and aren't immediately impressed by their god act. Just remember," Hyunwoo said to his crew, "we're not doing this to become conquerors ourselves. We're doing it to give people choices. What they do with those choices is up to them." "Understood, Captain," came the chorus of replies. As the stars shifted around them and the Indomitable headed toward its next encounter with false divinity, Captain Hyunwoo Park reflected on what they had learned. Gods, it turned out, were not eternal or all-powerful. They were just people with better special effects and the willingness to lie about what they were. But more importantly, they had learned that sometimes the most divine thing you could do was to show others that they didn't need gods at all. The Indomitable flew on through the darkness between stars, carrying with it a simple message that would soon spread across the galaxy. Question everything. Bow to no one. And remember that the most impressive gods are often the ones with the most to hide.